I think all retail is essentially becoming AI first or AI enabled at this point. We do really value being able to give people really appropriate natural health product advice, and we need to automate aspects of that very carefully rather than rush in. There's no such thing as a perfectly sustainable business model. It's very much, I think, bringing your customers on the journey of like, this is what we're doing, this is what we were able to do.
Welcome to Add to Cart, Australia's leading e-commerce podcast that express delivers all you need to know in the fast-moving world of online retail. Here's your host, Bushy.
Welcome to Add to Cart, Australia's leading e-commerce podcast for e-commerce professionals who never stop learning. That's you. And I'm Nathan Bush, or Bushy, joining you from the land of the Turrbal people here in Brisbane, Australia. Now, I want you to imagine this. You acquire two beloved Aussie brands, Flora and Fauna, who many of you will know from the amazing Julie Mathers, their original founder, back in episode 141, and also Nourished Life. After their BWX acquisition and subsequent offload, they've got no team, no warehouse, no website, and their reputation has taken a huge hit. That's what this week's guest, Abel Butler, took on. In 6 months, Abel and his HealthPost team rebuilt both brands from scratch, and they are now HealthPost's flagship brands in the Australian market. But what was impressive is how they did it. They did it without compromising values, no big team, no VC war chest, just clarity, care, and a whole lot of self-belief, as you will hear today. Abel is the CEO of HealthPost, which is a natural health retailer founded by his mum 36 years ago in the bottom floor of their family home in beautiful Golden Bay, New Zealand. He's grown it into a multi-brand e-commerce business backed by purpose and now powered by AI. His team is managing thousands of products, rich customer experiences, and even a biodiversity restoration project bringing seabirds back onto the island. Isn't it amazing what retailers can do? In this chat, you'll hear how Abel pulled off a brand rescue in just 90 days, why they ditched their PIM, how they think about loyalty beyond discounts, and what being an AI-first retailer looks like in the real world for someone who believes that AI is the future for their business. Now, if you're struggling to get control of your Meta account, whether you are DIYing it in-house or you are partnering with an agency, but you don't feel in control, I've got something for you. I'm teaming up with Ian Calvert from Boom E-commerce for a brand new bootcamp, Reset and Scale, Meta Bootcamp. It kicks off on Monday, June 23rd, and we're going to walk you through how to clean up your campaigns, rebuild your account, and get performance back on track. We want you in control of your Meta account, whether you're doing it in-house or with an agency. It's 4 weeks, 100% practical. You can grab your spot now at addtocart.com.au or the link in the show notes. Now, a massive thanks to our partners Shopify and Klaviyo for making this episode and our podcast possible. Let's get into this fascinating and very candid conversation with the very grounded, very strategic, very focused Abel Butler. Abel, welcome to Add to Cart.
Thanks, Nathan. Yeah, great to meet you. Cheers.
Brilliant to have you here. Now, the way that we came across each other, I had had so many people recommend you to come on the podcast firstly, so thank you for coming on. You've been on our hit list. It sounds horrible, but it's actually a nice hit list for a while.
Yeah.
And then I published a newsletter 2 weeks ago, I think, and it was kind of my lament around how difficult it is for sustainable brands to be healthy and profitable in the current economic environment at the moment. And I gave a few examples from recent times that really kind of irked me. And I was like, I want this to be right, but it's so hard in this environment. And then you emailed back pretty much straight away and you're like, hey, Nath, yes, it's tough, but there are some of us that are doing okay. Like we're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
And that kicked off this conversation. So it excites me.
Cool. Thank you. Yeah, that's great to hear. I mean, it is tough and it is terrible to see these great businesses struggling. So definitely not taking anything away from that. But yeah, I think you had some questions for me around what we might be doing differently or yeah, how come we're still here? Yeah,
We're still here.
yeah,
Sustainable business. We're still here. There's your
yeah,
tagline.
yeah.
So tell us about everything HealthPost at the moment, because a lot of our listeners might be familiar with Flora and Fauna. We had Julie Mathers on a few years ago now,
Yeah.
and also Nourished Life, both household Australian brands, which are now under your control. But tell us about the story of HealthPost first off, to set the scene.
Sure. Yeah. Well, so we go way back. So we're 36 odd years old. Yeah. Started by my mum in the late 1980s in the bottom floor of our house as a mail order catalogue business. It was originally called Discount Nutritional Supplements. And yeah, so focus on natural health. And in my early 20s, I was in Golden Bay where we live, which is, yeah, top of the South Island in New Zealand, really beautiful corner of the world. And yeah, I was looking to what I was going to do for my career, and it just seemed such an obvious candidate to take online. So we built a very primitive website and started selling online in 2002. And I've been more or less at it ever since.
What was your mum's reaction when you said, Mum, I want to take this and take it online?
Yeah, she was skeptical, to be fair. Yeah, I didn't get paid at first. I just sort of sat there beavering away, kind of showing her terrible concept of what it could look like. In the end, we hired some help. And yeah, and then once you could see that it actually would work, then we were away.
Okay. And so HealthPost grew in New Zealand, and was Flora and Fauna Nourished Life your first Australian entry?
It kind of was and wasn't. So we had a healthpost.com.au domain for some time from, I was probably pushing 10 years, from sort of 2011 through to the beginning of COVID. But then there was a lot of supply chain disruption and things. But in saying that, all of the dispatch was done from here in New Zealand. So yeah, Flora and Fauna and Nourished Life is our first physical presence within Australia, which is really exciting for us because yeah, we've been wanting to expand into Australia for over a decade. So great to be finally in the market physically and with those brands in particular. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us how that all came about, because it obviously made a lot of headlines in especially the retail press at the time when BWX collapsed. And I think there was genuine concern around not only the future of them, but what they'd done to those brands, because they were beautiful brands started by beautiful founders.
Yeah.
And I think there was this general kind of upset that a corporate had allowed them to get to that point.
Yeah.
What was it about those brands that you were like, actually, I think I can take this on?
Yeah, it was real deep breath material and it moved very quickly. So I guess like many others, I'd followed the story quite closely. We really looked up to them. And also we were kind of looking at, well, who is kind of the equivalent? Because we're pure play online retail within New Zealand, and we've reached a reasonable size doing that within quite a specific niche. And that's, quite focused on the natural and eco space in particular. And yeah, we've been able to sort of to make that work, and then also quite values driven as well, as obviously both those brands were. So there were a whole lot of kind of parallels or similarities. So we really looked up to both of those brands and what they were doing in the Australian market. And also I knew Julie and Tom a little, lovely people that they are. So kind of, yeah, it was particularly sad also to see it through that context. So it felt like a real long shot. It was funny, it was tagged on to the very end of a board meeting because we have an independent board, and I was in two minds and I just slipped in right at the end. Oh, by the way, in the press yesterday, I happened to notice, yeah, and would we have a look? And the board was like, yeah, long shot, but sure, we'll have a look. And then it was sort of like 2 weeks later, we own them. So
Wow.
yeah.
So not even a board item agenda, and then 2 weeks later you own them.
yeah, that's right. Yeah, so it was not a lot of time to think about it. I mean, I'm mightily glad that we did, and we were successful in that process. But it was obviously an incredibly hurried thing. We didn't have a lot of time to consider.
Was there much negotiation there, or was it kind of like they were just ready to take whatever they can salvage?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. There was quite a bit of back and forward. So we were actually mainly dealing with KPMG as the receivers at that point because, Commonwealth Bank had pulled the plug and appointed them as the receivers. So they were acting on behalf. They were actually pretty good to deal with overall. But yeah, it was pretty robust at points. They were a shambles, to be really honest, not KPMG, but the state of things at that point was a mess. So, that was reasonably helpful from a valuation point of view in terms of like they're trying to put a value on stock. And there was a point there where it was like, well, can you actually tell us what you've got? And the answer was clearly no. So it was like, well, yeah, we can't put a big number against that, can we? So, yeah.
What was the lesson that you took out of that? So, obviously being able to peer into a business that has gone so wrong, where did it go so wrong?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. I mean, I think if I had to kind of give a one-word answer from what I've seen, it was kind of hubris, really, I think. And also, I think there was quite a lot of executive change and governance change through that period. So, you had people making decisions that weren't necessarily the people who were ultimately owning those decisions or the outcomes of those decisions as well. So I think there was probably a bit of a lack of accountability. Going back through the public reporting is interesting, where you see kind of they start to feel a bit overextended, and then they're still making further acquisitions. And I mean, it's easy for me to say I wasn't, part of those discussions, obviously, but you do wonder somewhat about, the double down when things aren't really panning out as expected. Yeah, but for me personally, that's the big lesson I take is like, trying to avoid hubris and overconfidence.
And I think there's something in there too from the outside around looking at it, moving from a founder's perspective into a corporate perspective.
Yeah.
Very different businesses, but we saw that with Catch, right? As soon as it got swallowed up by Woolworths Group, it loses that focus and that attention to detail that a founder can give.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right, Nathan. And I think, just the only thing that I would say is that Flora and Fauna and Nourished Life were such a small part of the overall corporate and the overall corporate failure. So while they were undoubtedly mismanaged and, lost so much through the loss of those two incredible founders, in terms of who those businesses were, they weren't a huge part of the overall failing of the group.
Yeah. And I suppose very similar to Catch, such a small part of the large business that they're just not the priority in those corporate behemoths.
No, yeah, that's right. And they had no real background in online retail either. So, yeah.
Yeah. And so, all right, 2 weeks, you've slipped it into a board meeting and gone, what about this? And then 2 weeks later, you end up owning these businesses. What did those first 90 days look like for you as you look to turn it around?
Yeah, that was really interesting. Even before that, during those 2 weeks, there was quite a few calls in terms of like, who would we need to help us with this process? And there were some amazing people stepped in. Moustache Republic, our long-term agency partners, they were fantastic because we knew that there was a massive technology overhaul required. So we had to know that we had partners who were basically prepared to make that their top priority, or that was going to cost us a whole lot of money. And then, some special people who you would know, someone like Laura Doonan, for example, who just stepped in straight away and said, right, well, how can I help? Who do you need to know? And
awesome.
She introduced me to some people. And so there's a lot of that going on. But I mean, obviously just working all hours. It's an incredible amount of work. And the team thing was really interesting because, people feel like they're busy, and undoubtedly they were busy. I mean, I felt busy as well before it. And then you go into the team and you go, well, I know we all feel like we're busy, but here's this. Yeah.
When you acquired those businesses, did you acquire any of the team, or was it more brand and product?
We couldn't go forward with the team, which was really sad. And there's a couple of reasons for that. Physically, the business was located in Melbourne, and it was quite integrated within the BWX corporate premises and entity. So it was not really realistic at all to proceed there. Some of the e-commerce team were Sydney based, but the challenge there was we had those roles already within our business for one thing. And then we knew we couldn't trade because we had no warehouse. We had stock, which we didn't even know, what was. BWX couldn't even give us an accounting of what they had, for example. So we couldn't trade. So no income. We knew we'd have no income until we could relaunch, which is, new warehouse, new website, new team, ultimately. So that was really unfortunate consequence of it. But we did do our best.
So how did you set the new business up now? Is it all out of New Zealand, or have you got warehouses in Australia now?
Yeah, so we have a warehouse in Brookvale in Sydney, which is where we do all of the fulfillment from. And obviously we have a warehouse team there and a warehouse manager, and we've got a couple of specialist marketing roles as well. in that office, but we mainly use our New Zealand team, which was kind of part of the rationale for the whole thing. Was like, well, we've got this incredible team, but we kind of need to create more opportunity or spread them across a larger opportunity, which has worked really well. Yeah, I'm like, I thought they were good for it, and sure enough, yeah, they come through.
Amazing. And I've seen some of your socials and your videos around where you're located, and I'm like, well, if I could keep the team there, I would. I wouldn't be moving into an industrial park somewhere in Australia.
No, cheers. Yeah. No, lucky enough to sort of land on the northern beaches. But yeah, that's right. We didn't have a whole lot of team who wanted to relocate. Yeah.
Very fair. Was there a point in those first 90 days, and I get that it was probably all a blur for you, but was there a point in those first 90 days you're like, actually, I'm confident here, like that we are going to make this work?
Yeah. I think, you have to adopt that mindset. And I think, probably also, I've been around long enough to know that kind of it was going to be a huge amount of work and make a huge impact on us personally. My partner is our head of operations and procurement as well. So we knew, that this was going to change our lives, as it were. But yeah, I mean, there's a honeymoon period, it was just so exciting. Yeah. And the brands are fantastic, right? As you said, they're just, they're amazing brands. So yeah, the fact to be able to carry them forward, yeah, so exciting.
How long did it take you from the moment you acquired the business to be able to relaunch and get that website up again?
It was the best part of 6 months, which is, in hindsight, would have been nice to be able to do that quicker. It was really, really complex in terms of sorting out the stock. Obviously, we had to acquire a warehouse, we had to hire a team, and we had to build a whole new website. So yeah, it did take a while. And also we're basically operating on a shoestring as well. So yeah, I think with hindsight, probably would have tried to get a bit more money into that part and go a bit quicker. But yeah, you do your best.
And was there any point where you thought whether you would merge some brands, whether it be into each other or into HealthPost, or were they always going to be maintained as separate identities?
I think we asked the question. I think you kind of have to ask yourself the question. But I'm really glad of the approach that we have taken, because we see them as all having really distinct and viable identities, each of their own. So yeah, they serve different purposes, and I'm glad that we've kept them separate. No plans to merge them.
Awesome. All right, Let's get nerdy. Let's go into that tech stack, because I know that is, one of the first things that you looked at in relaunching the brands. Can you tell us a little bit more around what that tech stack looks like, and what were your non-negotiables in terms of priorities? Because obviously speed to market was crucial to get cash flow moving through. How did you approach that technology relaunch?
I guess the fundamental question that we probably asked around that was, because we like our technology that we're running in HealthPost for starters, but it was only sensible to ask the question, if we were starting again, clean slate as it were, is there anything we would change? And we did make a couple of different decisions. And yeah, we built on a Shopify tech stack in Australia, but we've also kept some core components. So we still run NetSuite as ERP across the group, which works really well. We use .wms for the ERP in Australia, which has served us pretty well. Yeah, different to what we use in New Zealand. We use PeopleVox, so a couple of differences. And then satellite systems, we were already in a pretty good place. So Yotpo, Klaviyo, yeah.
Okay. Those changes there, especially for the WMS, was that just because you had a chance to reinvent, or was it because there's a difference between how you operate in the New Zealand market versus the Australian market?
Yeah, good question. There's actually not very much difference in terms of how we operate across the two. So yeah, it was on advice of well-placed insiders that .wms was a really flexible system, which has proven to be. So yeah, kind of the jury's out on that one, to be honest. I think both systems are really capable.
We're getting a lot of questions actually in our Add to Cart community at the moment around WMS. It seems like it's the next area that's ripe for a bit of disruption, in that there's not a clear leader or a clear obvious choice for most businesses. Seems to be split.
Yeah, interesting.
Yeah,
it hasn't sort of consolidated to one dominant player.
No. One of the things that I loved browsing your websites was the depth of product information. It feels like you've put a lot of time and effort into making sure that there is a richness there for the customer to make the right decision for them. I think at one point I saw that there's over 40 filter options as you're looking through your category pages and your subcategory pages. How do you approach product data within your business?
Yeah, so it has been an interesting journey. I think it will be a lot easier going forward with making use of some AI tools and some smarts around that, where, yeah, previously, to be honest, it has been pretty manual. We were using Commerce Connect as a PIM originally, but we actually found that we don't even really need a PIM to do what we're doing. But yeah, we make a lot of use of smart sheets and a lot of use of NetSuite. But yeah, the trickiest things probably was suppliers in terms of actually, the onboarding. We do get the old gripe about, really, do you need to know all of this information?
Yeah.
But for us also, it's a good check on supply chain, because we're trying to hold ourselves to a pretty high standard of integrity. So it's like, well, if you can't answer these questions, then, there's probably something going. You should know as the supplier. Yeah.
So it does two jobs. It kind of validates that the supplier is across all the critical information as a sustainable sourced partner, but also gives the customer everything that they need to make the right decision.
Yeah, that's right. That's a good way to put it.
Awesome. And when you say that you don't think you need a PIM anymore, what's your source of truth for your product data?
Yeah, source of truth is really NetSuite. Ultimately. Yeah.
Okay. And then pass through to Shopify, Google, everywhere else that needs it.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously, there's a bit of enhancement that happens in Shopify and other endpoints, but yeah, ultimately NetSuite.
Okay, cool. Interesting that you brought up AI there, because I've seen you post a little bit about AI and I've seen you describe your strategy as AI first retail.
Yeah.
What does that mean for you day to day, especially as AI is changing on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah, that's obviously a huge question. And yeah, if I'm saying AI first retail, to be honest, it's because of the type of people that I want to be able to engage with and the type of conversations that I want to be able to have. I think all retail is essentially becoming AI first or AI enabled at this point. So yeah, such an interesting time. I mean, one of the things we really struggle with is how much time to spend building within a specific system or a specific platform versus information gathering, and especially with the rate of change, So
what do you mean by that, building versus information gathering?
It's obviously, systems proliferation is a very real thing. And, how much also running it across a team as well. So how much do we want to be kind of centralized, top down, and forward planned in our approach? And then, there's options obviously to create proprietary tools and proprietary environments which enable additional capabilities. But then the rate of change is so fast as well that there's the danger that if you're too prescriptive or invest too heavily in any sort of one particular tool or technology or environment, it's kind of out of date by the time you've built it. So that's some of the stuff that we're grappling with at the moment.
It's an interesting challenge, isn't it? Because when you're AI curious, there's no amount of fiddling that you can do and no limit to the amount of fiddling you can do.
No.
And I could imagine someone like yourself who is endlessly curious, you could spend nights up till 3 a.m. creating systems and processes and ways of doing things just by fiddling. But then in 6 months' time, it just becomes part of either the software that you're using or an out-of-the-box solution. That's the risk at the moment.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting to see your comments the other day. I'm very, very interested in who is leading in this space, who actually feels confident that they're making really good decisions and seeing the benefits. I mean, we're certainly seeing the benefits, but I don't think there's any one right way at this stage, right?
No, I think it's exactly what you were saying. You got to pick a strategy and go with it.
Yeah.
We talked about this last week with James Johnson on Shopify, is that we had a dinner and we had 16 retailers around the table. They were all using AI in different ways. So you had someone like Drew from TileCloud, who was very much the fiddler, very much in there, creating his own things, working out what's right for him, and not I'd say one of the most advanced in retail that I've heard around adopting new tools.
Yeah.
And then others who are like, well, I'm just waiting until my partners onboard the tools and then I'll make the most of them when they're there.
Yeah.
But I'm not changing our processes because I don't have time to fiddle, and then I don't have time to correct the mess once I don't need it anymore.
No, really interesting. That totally resonates. It's exactly the kind of thing we're grappling with is, to what extent are we relying on those core technology vendors to be rolling out what we need versus trying to create custom builds of things?
How are you finding the difference? Because you've got some pretty big solutions there with NetSuite and Shopify. Are you finding that they're giving you the tools from an AI perspective that you need to stay ahead?
I think they're both doing some interesting stuff in the space. Like, Shopify, obviously, like I'm confident that, Shopify are going to continue to be a leader in terms of AI commerce enablement. I don't think there's much doubt about that at all. But in saying that, I still think there's really good use cases as it stands today to be pulling information out of Shopify and out of Klaviyo and other systems for analysis and optimization and third-party AI tools as well, would be my personal perspective, at this point.
Are there any third-party AI native tools that you've kind of taken on recently, say in the last 12 months, that you just love?
I really like what Profit Peak are building. So, which is interesting from the point that they might not come immediately to mind as AI native, but I believe we're increasingly seeing that in their platform. So we enjoy working with that, and some of the sort of real language analysis, that they're providing on performance and stuff is really interesting. I love what those guys are building.
You're not the first to say it. We actually had a bit of a comment stream in the community again last week around Sidekick, Shopify's Sidekick, and the increased abilities around Sidekick. And people are like, well, look, I'm going to go in and try it again because I've tried it in the past and it didn't really give me the analysis that I need. They'd been relying on Profit Peak because they're like, the AI analysis I get out of there is really specific and tailored to my business. So you're not the first. So that's great to hear because I love what Carla and Dave are building.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
And obviously Gorgeous doing great stuff in the AI space as well.
Yeah, great. Customer service is a big space that's ready to be disrupted with AI.
Yeah.
I know that you're a really people-first, customer-led brand. How do you approach AI from a customer service perspective when that's so important to you?
Yeah, it's a good question. We're pretty early stage from that perspective, and that is a big part of the reason for it. And certainly comfortable, automating around like order related inquiries and that side of things. And I love what Gorgeous are building there where, customers can automatically update order statuses in Shopify and that type of thing. That's very cool. But then if you consider it in the context of, for instance, HealthPost, where it's primarily natural health focused, we need some really solid, ethical guidance and guardrails around that because, we do really value being able to give people really appropriate natural health product advice, and we need to automate aspects of that very carefully rather than rush in.
There's the age-old question. What is the acceptable lifespan on a pair of undies? Well, luckily for step one, they no longer have to guess. In fact, they will probably be able to spot a pair of old undies before their customers can. Klaviyo has helped Step 1, a $70 million ASX-listed business, understand and action their customer data with more personalised recommendations based on the individual, targeted discounting to avoid margin erosion, and even help them monitor the growth in international customers to know the right time to expand. Last year alone, Step 1 attributed 53% Klaviyo year-on-year growth with an ROI of 65 times. I mean, if you can get those results while in comfy undies, you're really winning the game of life. To explore how Klaviyo can grow your e-commerce business and see more case studies like this, visit klaviyo.com/au.
I like what you say there, though, because if I'm interpreting it right, it's a nice way of separating. It's like, if I can automate order information that's essentially shopping information, that's good for us and it's good for the customer because they get the answer immediately and they get the right answer.
Yeah.
But if it's product or industry related, then we probably need to put our own filter and expertise over the top of it.
Yeah, that's right.
Tell me about loyalty, because I did notice that you've made some changes to your loyalty program in the last 12 months. That's a notoriously difficult thing to do, to make changes to loyalty when you've got such loyal customers. How was that received by your customers?
It's gone really smoothly, and we have seen an improvement in the key metrics, associated with repeat purchase and customer lifetime value. So, pretty happy with that overall. But we've really just taken kind of an MVP, to be honest, Nathan, like a bit of a lift and shift approach initially. I'm more excited about what we're going to do next as kind of impact-focused brands in terms of where we can incentivize positive behavior more so than, we'll save you money on your next order, but you can actually contribute to positive environmental and social outcomes through repeat shopping with us. Like, that's kind of the next stage, which, I think is really exciting.
That's cool. And so what platform are you using for loyalty to help you enable that in the future?
We're using Yotpo across the group at the moment. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh, that's interesting because, I mean, we used Yotpo at Metagenics when I was doing some work there and took exactly the same approach. And Susie was leading the charge there and made the decision that, yes, at the start, we'll do a basic reward you for purchasing, but it enables you to do so much more with points and rewarding interactions and community. That's the fun stuff down the track, right? The points is just the foundational level.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
When you think about community, obviously because brand has been so family focused for so long, especially in a community that I can imagine is pretty tight in your area, how do you engage your community and the people that really love what you do?
So in terms of the wider customer base rather than the physical local community?
Yeah.
Bit of both.
Yeah. In terms of do they come together at all? Because I know a lot of brands who are really successful in regional or other areas outside of capital cities, they have this almost like cult following locally and there's a real pride that comes with that.
Yeah, I think we definitely get some of the benefit of that. So we have incredibly loyal, hardworking team here in our small rural community where we're based in New Zealand. So that's amazing. We've got a good reputation and I think we're lucky enough to have some of Aotearoa, New Zealand's most outstanding kind of natural landscapes, like right on our doorstep. So yeah, that's been a really big focus for us is through the HealthPost Nature Trust is partnering with government and Māori to restore biodiversity to the local area. And they're essentially taonga or sacred to Māori and of enormous kind of cultural, social value to people in general. So I think that's the way we kind of we get a lot of connection and resonance through that. Big tourist destinations as well. So yeah.
What does that project look like? Tell us more around that restoration project because I'm really interested in what the goal is and how you kind of tie that into your business, especially as obviously there's a money piece of an investment, but from what I see on the outside, it's almost part of the team culture as well.
Yeah, that's right. It's a key motivator and driver. So for many years, because we've been values-based from the beginning, trying to see sustainable commercial success as a means to, deliver positive social and environmental outcomes more widely. So that's been baked in, and we were sort of donating a lot of money to charity over many years. And then we kind of wanted to do something closer to home, and we wanted to be able to really sort of see and feel the impact of what we were doing and for the team to be able to as well. So yeah, and then, you have this really iconic local landscape, so some incredible coastline and cliffs and things that, really should have been protected a long time ago. They're right on the edge of a national park, but because it was difficult and budgetary constraints, they have just been being farmed for many years, and the biodiversity value of the area is way, way, way down on what it once would have been. Obviously, in New Zealand, we have a lot of problems with introduced predators, so particularly wiping out the bird life, but also reptiles and invertebrates and things as well. So yeah, for starters, we built a sanctuary. So we just took a headland, a promontory, and fenced it off. And then we started to reintroduce seabirds, which were only previously able to breed on offshore islands. So we reintroduced chicks and that's hopefully just starting to come back and start nesting within the sanctuary.
How good's that?
It's very cool. Very, very cool. Yes, I mean, something like that, you imagine that, the incredible community engagement, but and then the project's just been massively expanded because we kind of got a few runs on the board, established some credibility. We're able to sort of take over half the farm park, which has just hugely expanded the project area, and we're putting a much bigger fence in and starting to aim for reintroduction of a few more precious endangered species and things. So it's got real momentum. But in saying that, what's very, very cool about it, just quickly, is sort of the amplification effects. So we commit a minimum level of funding and have done for many years now, but because of that, it's amplified several times by an enormous amount of volunteer hours from the local community, which comes back to what you're saying, and then also private donors and grants and things. So we're getting kind of, 5x kind of what we put in on the back of it. Yeah, so it's it's an incredible project. Yeah.
It's amazing momentum. To kick that off, did you get government support or local council support straight up, or did you just go, look, we just want to get started and just...
It's administered by the Department of Conservation, who are, so national level, we needed them on board, but they've been project partners from the beginning, and also local iwi or Māori had to be on board as well, but again, they've been fantastic partners, so.
Amazing.
Yeah, it's a partnership.
How do you divide your time between all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I love to get out there and plant some trees and hang out with the volunteers. I don't do it near as much as I would like to be able to. My job, basically, as it stands at the moment, is to make sure that we remain financially sustainable so that we can continue to make our ongoing investments. So, yeah, I'd love to be spending more time out there with the trees and the birds, but we'll get there. Yeah.
You got plenty of time for that.
Yeah.
What I love about this is that you're showing real impact and real care for the environment and sustainability. And what I had heard about you from other people, such as Laura, beforehand, is that you've got to meet Abel because he genuinely cares. Like, he actually cares. Because you don't get that a lot. As we loop back to the start of the conversation where we talked about how difficult it is for sustainable brands, one of the points that I made in there was around it's hard because you get held to a higher account than other brands. It's harder to find partners because you have higher standards. Cost of materials is often higher. There's no playbook. But then one of the things that I always talk about is that you're under more attack because you're often the ones doing things first or setting the trends for customers and showing why it's important, doing the educating. And then it's easier for bigger brands to come in and claim some of that.
Yeah.
And often that is through greenwashing. What advice would you have for other brands, whether that be sustainable, ethical, trying to do the right thing to help establish that trust that they don't fall under that greenwashing cloud?
Yeah, it's a really interesting topic. And, the most important thing is to be able to be really honest with yourselves. I mean, I think for us, it's really helped by the fact that we're a closely held family business and we're a close family. So it's like ultimately those decisions we know that we're very aligned and we know where those lines are that no one would be comfortable crossing. So I think that's helped a lot. But yeah, to your point in terms of advice, I think the really key thing, like, people generally operate with quite a lot of good faith. And then I don't think people expect perfection. That's certainly not been our experience. I think particularly not if you're not claiming perfection. Like, it's such a journey. And for us, it's been a real journey. And I look back at some things we might have done many years ago and think, oh, there's no way we'd do that now. But people were quite forgiving about it and will readily own those mistakes. And, just to be really honest about the fact you're not always going to get it right. And there's no such thing as sort of, a perfectly sustainable business model. Yeah, it's very much, I think, bringing your customers on the journey of like, this is what we're doing, this is what we were able to do, this is where we'd like to improve. That's worked really well for us. I think give people the benefit of the doubt and be honest and transparent, and they'll do the same for you.
Being radically transparent sounds fantastic, and I think we'd all love to live radically transparent, but I could imagine that comes with some difficult decisions or uncomfortable conversations. Has there been a time where you've really struggled to be as transparent as you want to be?
Yeah, and I mean, I guess, to walk my talk, I mean, like, Flora and Fauna is a 100% vegan brand, and I think veganism is absolutely fantastic. I'm personally not vegan, I'm vegetarian, but, so something like that, and that conversation's been had, when we acquired Flora and Fauna. It's like, well, who are these new owners and are they vegan? It's like, well, no, we're not. So something like that, where I think, again, it's like just needing to be honest and own it. It's just the reality. I 100% support veganism. I think veganism's incredible, but unfortunately haven't been able to hold myself personally to that standard yet. So yeah.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
And it'll come out eventually anyway, right? So even if you try and hide it or not say your truth.
For over 40 years, Oz Hair and Beauty has been Australia's go-to for great hair days. But as they grew, they found their operations needing a little extra shine. So, what changed when they switched to Shopify and integrated Shopify point of sale in store? Well, let's just say business as usual got a glow up. They've enjoyed 484% year-on-year revenue growth, and they're reaching more customers than ever. Inventory streamlined. Checkout smoother. Online sales skyrocketing because Shopify gave them the tools to speed up operations and drive growth while making the complex feel effortless. To read more success stories like Oz Hair and Beauty, visit shopify.com/case studies and get inspired today. So let's go back to growth, how we kicked off this conversation, because you were like, Nath, like,
we've got a good business here. We're pumping along.
Yeah.
Tell us about that roadmap into Australia. Now that you've well reestablished both those brands, what does growth look like for you in this market?
Yeah, we're really excited about it. So the initial thing obviously was we inherited a heap of customers, but then also, as we touched on, like a reasonable amount of damage to the brand equity and a bit of a trust deficit that we had to make up. So yeah, the first year or so was all about trying to rebuild trust and obviously reactivate and restore relationships with as many of those customers as we could. And then the big unknown was, of course, well, can we acquire new customers at a level that's economical? And particularly, obviously, CACs across the board, customer acquisition cost has gone up so much and it's become so much more competitive. So that was the really nerve-wracking bit. But yeah, that's where we're really, really happy at the moment is, our new customer acquisition numbers are really trending in a really healthy way from a nice mixed variety of sources. So we're really seeing that growth in new customers, and obviously that's compounding nicely. So it is working. I think we've got a whole lot further to go, but it's amazing to see that we can acquire customers at scale at decent unit economics. So yeah.
That's awesome. Well done.
Thank you.
When you are in a tough economic climate, there is a school of thought that it's difficult to get customers to potentially pay a little bit more for sustainable or ethical products. Have you found that at all?
Yeah, the main sort of, I think, thing there is we have leaned quite heavily into promotions and discounting.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, and that's because it works, I think it probably particularly works in a climate like this. So yeah, I would like to see us over time become less reliant on that side of things. And I think there's lots of different ways we can go about that. And obviously building brand and community, as shorthand for that is the obvious approach. But yeah, we have had to do a lot of discounting to drive necessary growth.
It's the reality of it, isn't it? It's how you keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
And just to sum it up, where does your growth come from now as a company who I can imagine family-led business, part of the New Zealand community, and you strike me as someone who is aiming for sustainable growth, not stupid growth. Where do you see in the next 12 months your growth coming from?
I think that, to be honest, most of the growth within the group will be on the Australian side. We're doing a bit of work in terms of technology platform and that side of things, which I think will be some big enablers on the New Zealand side. And we're also doing quite a lot of work around storytelling and partnering with our supplier partners on storytelling, which I think will lead to enhanced profile and loyalty and additional growth in New Zealand. Yeah, and then also in Australia, we've got some really cool partnerships on the brews. So that's the stuff I'm really excited about. But yeah, the Australian growth is actually happening. It's compounding quite naturally at this point. So lots to be happy about there. New Zealand, we're having to work a bit harder for it.
Yeah, okay. That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. So if people have heard the story and want to check out more, maybe get in touch with you, what's the best place for them to go?
By all means, flick me a bell on LinkedIn. Yeah, I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So yeah, look me up there. And then, yeah, obviously, the websites are pretty well known, I think. Yeah. You can also just email through the contact forms and address it to me and my team will pass it on.
How good. Abel, I love your work. Thank you so much for joining us today. It was brilliant to hear a different approach to retail.
Thank you.
And one that mixes growth. You don't strike me as someone who's not ambitious. You still want growth. You still want the things that other retailers want, but you're doing it in the right way and making a real impact. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Really appreciate it, Nathan. Cheers.
Did you get the clarity and the calm that came through from Abel there? I think his approach is a breath of fresh air in an industry that often confuses pace and growth with noise. He's not shouting for attention. He's quietly building one of the most values-led e-commerce businesses across Australia and New Zealand. And here are the 3 big lessons that I'm walking away from that conversation with. Number 1, your product data is more than a back-end job. It can be a compliance gate with your suppliers. Abel and the HealthPost team manage thousands of SKUs and over 40 filter options for their customers without a dedicated PIM. Instead, they use NetSuite, Smartsheets, and Shopify in a lean, tightly integrated setup. But what's clever is how they've baked supplier accountability into that process. If a supplier can't give them all the detailed product, sourcing, and transparency data that they need for their customers, they don't get ranged. It's not just about accuracy, it's about integrity. I love that gate. Number 2, discounts are short-term and shouldn't be avoided, but loyalty can drive long-term change. Yes, Abel was hugely pragmatic about talking about discounts to drive reactivation and growth, especially in this economic climate that we find ourselves in. But where it gets exciting is what they're doing next. Their loyalty program is shifting away from transactional rewards and toward impact. Customers will soon be able to use points to support environmental initiatives like helping restore seabird populations in their region. That's loyalty that reflects brand purpose. And yes, Abel is very confident that people will pay more to be part of something that matters. Doesn't mean that you can't discount today, though. Number 3, speed doesn't have to mean chaos. Abel turned around 2 brands in 6 months, but he didn't do it by chasing shiny tools, building everything from scratch, or being an asshole. He leaned on a trusted core, Shopify, NetSuite, Mustache Republic, and a tight New Zealand-based team who knew the business. He created real relationships and clearly focused on these as the partners that were going to get them out of the doldrums. There's a lesson here that when the pressure's on, stick to what works, work with people you trust, and build from a solid foundation. Now, if you found value in this episode, please share it with a friend or someone who's building a purpose-led brand, or even maybe navigating a brand relaunch. And don't forget to join the Add to Cart community. We've got almost 300 e-commerce professionals in there right now, unpacking the ideas from episodes like this, sharing templates, and helping each other solve real e-commerce problems. It's free and you can jump in at addtocart.com.au. Thanks again to Shopify and Klaviyo, our amazing partners, for supporting Add to Cart, and to Abel for showing us what calm, focused, values-driven e-commerce looks like. Catch you next time.
Thanks again for listening, and until next time, keep those customers adding to cart.